Hey everybody, welcome back to Salvaged by Sammy, and today we are going to be updating this very outdated dresser. I got it off of Facebook Marketplace. We are just going to give it a whole upgrade, get rid of this laminate top. I have plans to keep the top drawers wood and paint the rest of it like a creamy white. Before we get started, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and let's get to making it over. The first step in any furniture flip is to remove the old hardware. This actually doesn't even have matching hardware. We are gonna update the hardware anyways. I'm just gonna throw this hardware away. It's super dated. I don't plan on keeping it for another project, so we're just gonna get rid of it altogether. Whenever I am starting a project, I like to pull out all of the drawers. That way I can vacuum inside. There just is a lot of stuff usually in them. I found needles, I found earrings, I found notes. So it's just a great idea to pull out the drawers, vacuum all the dust and anything left over in the actual base of the piece. That way you're not ever selling a piece and then somebody goes to pull the drawers out for some reason and there's just a bunch of stuff in the dresser. The next thing that we're gonna do to clean the piece is to wipe it down with crud cutter. Now, this piece isn't too dirty, so I'll be okay to just spray it down and wipe it down with some paper cloths. But if you have a piece that is super just grimy, oily, dirty, you can actually get a jug of this, mix it in with some water, take it outside, scrub it down, and then wipe it all down. I always get asked why you need to wipe down a piece before you go to sand or strip it. If you don't clean it and there's a bunch of dust and grime, you're just gonna sand all of that grime into the wood. It also is gonna build up on your sandpaper sheets. So you're gonna go through sandpaper sheets extremely quickly because it's just a whole bunch of oils build up and not actually removing the finish that you're trying to remove. I mentioned earlier that I want to keep these top 3 drawers wood, and I'm actually going to paint wash them. I am going to attach 100 grit sandpaper because we are going to sand off all of the existing finish and stain off of these top drawers. That way we can add a paint wash and make them a lighter wood tone later. Now that we are done sanding down all of the top drawers, I'm gonna grab 150 grit sandpaper. We're gonna go up in grit a little bit, which means it's gonna be a little bit finer and not as coarse as the 100 grit sandpaper. Scuff sanding, the whole point is to remove minor dents and scratches along with giving the paint something to adhere to. It'll kind of create teeth, if that makes sense. It's similar to like scoring something so that it adheres better. You don't necessarily need to remove all of the finish. Some spots will have the finish come off a little bit more than others. That's okay. But you really just want to rough it up to give the paint something to stick to and get out some of those minor dents, clean up some of the edges so that you can prep the piece for primer. Now that the entire piece is scuff sanded, we are ready to prime. But first we need to clean off all of the sanding dust, that way it doesn't get trapped under the paint. So my favorite way to do that, if there's a lot, is to just vacuum it off first. And then always follow up with tack cloths. And tack cloths are sticky cheesecloth, which are going to remove all of the extra dust and debris and even a lot of small particles that you can't see. So this is the best way in between coats of paint, in between coats of sanding, to wipe down your piece and make sure that there is no leftover particles and debris. I've done this exact same piece before and I know it has a lot of bleed through, which is where the previous stain bleeds through the primer. So I am actually going to be using some small roller brushes and Bin's primer that has shellac in it, which is a stain blocker. I am gonna take some of DAP's plastic wood and touch up all of the minor dents and damage. You can also do this prior to priming your piece, but I like to do it after because I tend to miss a bunch of pieces anyways. White primer makes it super easy to notice dents that may blend in with the wood before you prime. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but every time I make progress on a piece, I forget something. So I am throwing my cute little assistant in the car and we are headed to one of the stores that I get my paint from. They are closed tomorrow, so we gotta go grab it. That way I can paint the piece tomorrow. We are back. It is the next day. I went to get one color of paint and came back with like 6 new colors. That always happens to me, which is probably why I have an entire cabinet full of paint. But we are going to eat a quick lunch of Firehouse from DoorDash because I need to work and eat at the same time. I recently pulled my daughter out of daycare, and so all of these projects are happening either during her nap time or at night. We're gonna eat a quick lunch. I sanded down the entire piece last night to prep it for one more final coat of primer, and then we are gonna paint it. With the second coat of primer on, now I'm gonna sand down again with 400 grit sandpaper to make sure it's silky smooth before spraying the color. So to give this piece the best finish possible, I'm gonna be using my HomeRite Super Finish Max paint sprayer. And this will just make sure we have a super smooth and even coat across the piece. And I'm not gonna go super in depth on paint spraying for this video because I do have a full tutorial and I'll link that up at the top of the screen. Guys, we are so close to being finished with this piece. All of the paint is now applied, but before I can add the top coat, we need to tackle these drawers. I said earlier in the video that I want to leave them raw wood, so I'm actually going to be doing a tan paint wash, which is gonna just remove all of the orange undertones. To do this, it is super easy, and you can just grab any tan paint that you have, a small chip brush, some water, and an extra cup. This is so easy to do. I love to do it on all my raw wood pieces. It's similar to a whitewash, but it doesn't look as farmhouse looking and keeps the wood looking a little bit more natural. This is one of the easiest things you can do to quickly lighten up wood furniture. All you're gonna do is mix up a little bit, add it to your brush, wipe it on, and then once you let it sit for maybe about a minute, I just kind of keep wiping over it. Then you're gonna wipe off with either a paper towel, a microfiber rag, or whatever you have laying around that will just soak up the extra water. It's gonna look like nothing changed, but once the wood dries out, it will be lighter. You can always go back over this 2 or 3 more times, or you can change the ratio. So I did about 20% paint, 80% water, but you could always do 50-50 and make it more concentrated. That way it immediately gets lighter. So that ended up being a lot more watery than I had anticipated. I decided to just dump in some more paint to make it a little bit thicker. And now we're gonna do a second round. And you can already tell how much thicker that is because it's not nearly as see-through as the first coat was. Oh yeah, you can immediately tell how much more of an effect that made than the first time I did it. The last step in this flip is to add a polyurethane top coat. This is a water-based top coat, and I use it on all of my furniture flips, whether it's stained or painted, and because it's a water-based paint, it's not gonna yellow over time, so it's perfect to use on lighter colors. Plus it has extremely easy cleanup, which is great. If you are still with me, thank you. And we are at the final step of this furniture flip. I'm now gonna be adding hardware, and I'm actually gonna be using hardware that I got from Amazon, which is my favorite place to find hardware from. These handles are really neat because they're adjustable, especially if you have a piece of furniture that you wanna keep raw wood, and you don't wanna drill new holes, or if you just don't wanna drill new holes in general, these handles are great because you can set them to any width. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this furniture flip, then please like and subscribe to my channel. Next week, we are gonna be doing a super fun makeover on a big mid-century modern hutch. Stick around for that, and thank you guys again for being here and helping me save some pieces from the landfills.